You are now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles.
Good morning, Eagles fans. Welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Morgan Burkett, Eric Reese. Morgan, nice to see you, brother. How you been, man?
Yeah, man. I've been good. Been busy. Football season's in full swing. Had our first game on Sunday. Got another one this Sunday. So it's been good, man. Football all the time. Like, literally all the time. So I can't really complain.
So you eat, breathe, and shit football.
Oh, it's beyond that, brother. Football's in my veins, man. Like, I can't get away from it, even if I wanted to.
It's beyond
No knock on that.
football.
Yeah. Yeah. How you guys been, man? It's been a while.
I'm doing well. I
Fantastic.
feel like we're being blessed this morning by a sight that we've never seen before, but Eric without a hat or
Yeah.
without a scully. I think it's the first
Yeah.
time in Flipping the Birds history.
This is how I look when I wake up. So there's literally that. Yeah, you can tell it's a morning show. We're all looking rough. And I didn't even have it, we weren't even on the bender last night. I got sufficient sleep. This is just how I look. So what does that tell you?
I mean,
This is me at
the
peak
beard's growing in-
performance. This is me
beard's
at
growing
peak
in
performance in the morning.
It looks great, man. The beard looks great. Like, it's growing in luscious. It's getting longer every day.
It's like the least amount of work ever to grow a beard. You just
Yeah.
kind of don't pay
True.
attention to it, and boom. So yeah, no, I'm blessed though for sure.
That's fair.
Brian, you
That's
got
fair.
a pretty sick beard going too, bud.
I shaved mine down because it was getting rough. It was getting a little too rough. for me, bro.
If you were to see like underneath, you'd be like, yo, like you need to shave too. I'm like, nah.
And I feel like that's the worst.
I feel like
part
a
of,
woodsman.
As my dog wants to make a little feature. That's the worst part of the beard because you gotta not forget to like trim this and make it look like nice and sleek. And I always like I'll shape this up and I leave the house and you see it's like all these little hairs over here. Like shit.
No. and one of the worst parts about it is like, all right, well, I'm trying to grow it in and get it full, so you kind of have to look kind of disheveled a little bit for a while. You have to look like Mick Foley for a little bit. So I'm in my Mick Foley
Look.
stage.
It's a legendary look if depending on who you ask.
Man, I was growing the mustache out a little bit, and I go to this barber, and you gotta tip your barber well. That's the one thing. You tip your barber well, and then you tip people to hand you food well, and you'll be set, right? So every single time, because I've been tipping him well, he's doing a little bit more. So I just get like the fade, and then he'll like do the beard a little bit. So I was growing the mustache out, and I went for a haircut the other day, and he was doing my hair, and then just like got rid of my mustache.
Oh no!
I was like, because usually when I go, like I'm like this, right? So he's like, oh, that's probably what you want. But I was like, oh no, maybe I'll try growing the mustache out. And then
he just
like,
went full.
he just was like, oh, like this is what you want. Because I just said the usual, right? And I should have said something. It's kind of pretty fucking up.
He was like, yeah, let me get rid of this thing real quick. This caterpillar over here.
Boom. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm not doing a mustache anymore, man. I don't know. Like, he probably knows best.
And I feel like that's the reason besides the fact that I'm bald, that's the reason I don't go to a barber. Just because I feel like I'm the type of person that to critique anybody's work to the T. And if it's on me, like even with me getting a tattoo, like I was panicking because like if there's one thing off about my tattoo, like I'm gonna be pissed off because that's on my body for the rest of the life. So like when my beard, like I'll come home, I look in the mirror and I'll be like, no, it's not angled right, and I gotta fix it myself. I'm like, bro, like why did I pay you? I should have just paid myself.
Well, you should pay yourself, Brian. You should, but you shouldn't tattoo yourself. That's a bad idea.
No, definitely not. And luckily, like my tattoo artist did a pretty damn good job, and it's nice. I like it.
Good.
But yeah, let's focus on Eagle stuff.
Enough about
that's why everybody's here. Everybody's watching.
People are like, dude, why do we always start 5 minutes to the podcast with hair talk or whatever? I don't know. Last time it was like something about food. I forget what we were talking about.
A men's grooming podcast or something like that.
This is what,
yourself.
We're sponsored by Manscaped, or at least we're one. I don't know. So at least we're one. So
The Eagles finally they finalized their initial 53-man roster that was subject to change, right? We did see one big change going, well, a couple of big changes. James Bradbury was put on IR because of a lower leg issue. The Eagles ended up claiming Byron Young from the Raiders and waiving Marlon Tuipulotu, who's on the Chiefs practice squad. So Eagles could still take him away if they wanted to. But overall, just from a standpoint, 53-man roster going into the 2024 season where it's like a bit of a high expectation year. I'm not gonna say Super Bowl or bust. I just feel like it's progress or bust. How do you guys feel about this initial roster going into the season?
It's about so the final roster, when you look down at like who's going to be your starters and who was even competing for a starter role, is almost pretty much what kind of what we expected. Like I don't think there's any big surprises here. I think the biggest surprise is obviously the trade that appears to have that Jahan Dotson on the team, because obviously that wasn't a option beginning of training camp. So I'll sit here and pretty much look over this and say I'm not really that surprised by the by the final product here. For what I see as far as the who's on the team and who isn't. I will say this though, it's one of these scenarios here where I'm excited to see that there looks like there's a little bit more of a youth initiative on this roster. So there are some younger guys who are going to be playing more of accelerated roles in their first year. So that's when I'm more excited and I guess more surprised to take on, because honestly, I don't think he's got that as much as in the last few seasons. But I think that has everything to do with the coordinators that are set in place right now.
Yeah, I think I'm with Eric. Like not too many names that I'm surprised, but I think as a whole, like the wide receiver position group is the most interesting, right? You let go of Paris Campbell. Obviously, the Jahan Dotson trade made that a move you felt comfortable with. But having Johnny Wilson, right, make the roster and stuff like that. That's big, right? I think what Eric's talking about with that youth movement, I can't really, remember a time where one of those young receivers stuck and made a long-term impact. Usually they're kind of more speed merchant guys that had the trouble with drops. Like we could name off probably 6 or 7 of those guys that
right.
The Eagles, tried and failed. And this is kind of the opposite. So it'd be interesting to see how they use him, if he gets any playing time, whatever it is. But it definitely does indicate how they feel about him, right? Going forward is instead of taking the veteran, you took the rookie. The Jahan Dotson trade is a beautiful trade. You barely gave away anything. You end up with a third receiver that could be easily, a 1.5 on a team that's not as stacked as the Eagles. So huge move. I think on the defensive side of the ball, most things check out. They kind of went into camp knowing that, right? Like this was a team that was mostly built. But I think most of the playing time and figuring out who's playing where it were more the interesting things. And, Quinyon Mitchell kind of ran away with the slot corner position. And again, that secondary probably moving parts throughout the season, but the guys that made the team, you kind of expected, right?
That's fair. Yeah, and there's a few guys still in the practice squad, as well, that if they, were to be called upon, they're useful. Just like guys, just like Paris Campbell. I would say, and this is absolute favoritism, by the way, showing through. But like, if Kenny Pickett went down and like it was, why is his name slipping from me right now? Well, I had the depth chart right here.
Morning show, baby.
Tanner McKee. If Tanner McKee was actually your second, then I would feel absolutely fine with like calling up like Will Greer to be like your emergency. I would be absolutely fine with that. But that's because that's someone I've watched since college, and I do think that he would be a decent enough depth in the NFL. But yeah, like there are absolutely guys on the practice squad where I think this team is very deep. And while it's unsurprising, in the 53-man roster who's kind of placed to where I think overall it's a deep team. I mean, if we're talking about practice squad guys that are still useful, then that really is all that you need to know.
I will say that like Tui Puatu was Zach's guy, right? So I'd be curious to see how he feels about it. Probably not great. I think he's in the chat. So Zach, let us know how you feel, because I know that was your boy. I'm sorry to see him go for you. Our hearts are with you, brother. That's a tough one.
I think you guys both hit the nail on the head for the roster, right? I think this is probably it's great that you're seeing a youthful movement within the Eagles organization from top to bottom. My only concern with this team is that you don't have a premier pass rusher anymore, and I feel like it's a bit odd. Like looking at the Eagles saying, "Hey, like they don't have that guy right now." Like Jalen Carter is going to be that guy. There's no knock on him, but on the edge, like is Josh Sweat that guy? Like what version are we going to see of him? Nolan Smith hasn't shown the technique to stand out just yet. Bryce Huff, the jury's still out on him. Brandon Graham is always going to be Brandon Graham. He's going to get his he's going to show up when the Eagles need him to show up the most. But outside of that, I feel like that's the only spot that really concerns me. I feel like linebackers, like Nakobe Dean's good. He'll be, he's going to progress. Devin White's going to progress. Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Zach Bond, a little bit of question mark on his front. Safety wise, the depth ripples into I can't. This is what happens when you do a morning show. Yeah, screwing up my terminology. But for the safety position, like you had depth in the practice squad, right? The cornerbacks, they're deep as hell. They're talented. I love the Quinion Mitchell switching to 27, the attitude behind it. Cooper DeJean is going to come along fine. Avonte Maddox is still there. Eli Ricks, I feel like, was a surprise keeper.
I wasn't surprised by that. I saw everybody kind of making their rounds on social media, but my thought about that was like, oh, well, I thought he was going to make the team anyway, so I guess shame on me. So
it's not a knock on him. It's just I feel like there's a logjam
right
in the slot position, because you have Cooper who's going to come along and probably take that role, and then they're going to push Quinion to the outside, right? You have Avonte, who's one of the better slot corners in the league when healthy. Eli Ricks, he showed that he was not as savvy on the outside as he is on the inside. So, like, yes, you could be creative, but like you got a lot of players to really feed snaps to and hope that they don't, they don't get rusty.
I think it's a special teams move, to be honest. Like he was a great teamer. I mean, Job was too, right? So like, I feel like you couldn't really go wrong, and you take the guy that might help you out on defense over the guy that is solely a special teamer. But at that point, you're filling out your teams, and I mean, they're all great teamers, all those young corners. So
I also look at a guy like Ricks, where Brian, we're naming DeJean and Maddox, and like Maddox with the health and DeJean also with the health, but being brand new. Like he only had one preseason game. There's a lot of answers that are there's a lot of questions I think still surrounding those two. Not necessarily on their talent, but on their dependability. So I think you do have, another person stay on the roster that can maybe fulfill that. But also, to Morgan's point, he would be a fantastic teamer. So
that's fair. Wide receiver wise, John Dotson. I hate to sound like this kind of guy, but the number 83 is not working for me. I need a 13 on him or something of the sort. 19, but obviously Joshua took that. I don't like the number 83.
I wouldn't want to put him in the 13. I would no one. Just on the opposite of retiring number. I just don't want to see 13 for a minute. You know what I mean?
But like, I don't know. I feel like the 80s have turned into like the tight end numbers nowadays, as opposed to wide receivers. Like wide receivers are going
83. Yeah, I can't even think of a good 83.
Well, not off the top of my head right now for sure.
Tyler Boyd wore 83 for Cincinnati, but look how that tenure fell out.
Yeah, I mean, like if the best guy to wear a number is Tyler Boyd, then sure.
I'm gonna go order that jersey right now.
Yeah, like no one outside of Cincinnati owns a Tyler Boyd jersey. I guarantee it. If you open a Christmas present and you're a Cincinnati Bengals fan and it was Tyler Boyd jersey.
Like, oh, sick.
You're not calling grandma anymore. That's all I'm saying. You're not calling her anymore on the weekends. You're taking a month off. You talk to her in February.
She got it on. She got it on the clearance rack in Burlington. You can't knock that.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's a triple XL. It doesn't fit.
He's going to be the best 83 since Arnaz battle.
Exactly.
He was on the San Francisco 49ers in the early 2000s, and he was like a slot guy, I think, or something like that. I don't know.
I don't like it. Like especially a small wide receiver. Like you expect the 10 on him. You expect the 11s, the 13s.
Single digit would be hard. I like
Single
give
digit
him
would be dope, but the only one
9,
available
7.
is Nick Foles, and they're not giving that out.
Yeah.
Best 83 since Deion Branch. There's that.
That's
okay.
There's
That's
that.
yeah,
I mean,
okay.
Maybe that is the best one. I'm not sure.
Maybe
I would take that over. I mean, listen, it's not a knock on who he is, because I feel like John Dotson is going to be a severely lethal weapon for this offense, just because AJ even said it. Like, AJ is going to draw a lot of attention. Devontae is going to draw a lot of attention. Saquon's going to draw a lot of attention. You have to pick your poison now, not only with those three, but adding an additional player like Dallas Goedert, John Dotson. And Dotson, I mean, a pretty good route runner. Has pretty good speed in my opinion. But I'm actually very, very curious to see how they use him and like where what he's gonna end up in the season with, because I feel like 500 plus, like that means the Eagles are a damn near like really top of the top tier offense if he ends up with 500 plus yards.
Yeah.
One last one real quick. Best 83 since Wes Welker.
Okay,
that's not bad.
I feel like he didn't wear 83.
That might be the best one actually.
Everywhere. Anyways, but yeah, I feel like with the Eagles, like the receiving core, like it's always kind of been like a number one guy that was reliable, and then a bunch of other like maybes or ifs or like X factors. And you have three guys where it's like they can all catch, man. That's the biggest thing. Like they all have fantastic hands and make spectacular catches. Like that, I feel like, as a quarterback, you're not going to be as accurate as you want to be all the time. And to have three guys with catch radiuses, have good hands, even if like, you're not using him in a spectacular way, like he's going to make it spectacular because you did that ability. And to have that as your third receiver, man, like, again, I know we're talking about the game on Tuesday, but like I'm just so excited to see this offense because I don't know how you stop it. I just don't know.
Do you think this is going to be and then we'll move on to the next segment soon, but with this offense, do you feel like we're going to run into that issue that we run into every year where they get so pass happy that they forget about the run game? Like with a player like Saquon Barkley back there, not only talent-wise, but with the pay that he's receiving, like you got to think like from Jeffrey Lurie to Howie Roseman to Nick Sirianni's ears, like give him the ball as much as possible kind of thing? Or are we going to, like 2017 when we had to beg the Eagles to run the ball with LeGarrette Blount? Or, do you think we'll see actually just more natural come about?
So if it really is Kellen Moore having full reign of the offense, then I don't think we have to worry about there being a lack of balance. Also, and again, I know last year people could say, they could point to the whole DeAndre Swift thing and say, well, you had a powerful, offense. He didn't run the ball last year, so your points, it's a kind of a moot point. Well, I'm going to reiterate the same thing. Last year, I think, kind of being out of Sirianni's hands, I think he was trying to be a little bit more pass happy with his play calling. And again, you do have a even more improved offense because I think everybody would take. And it's not talking down on Swift, but I think everybody would take Barkley over the last two running backs we've had as starters. So I definitely look at these little nuances of changing. What's this thumbs up?
I don't know, man.
I just saw it. I was like, "What's going on?"
I was just like itching my nose, kind of, and it sounded
distracting.
Like
Distracting
now.
No, but I do think that just because Kellen Moore will be running the offense, we're going to have a whole different look than what we've seen before.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if I'm Jeffrey Lurie, you went out and you got Saquon. If they're not giving him the ball, I'm having like a couple meetings. I'm scheduling some meetings. I'm giving him the rock. But like, I think it's also like one of those cases where, there's going to be some games where you just don't use them as much as people want to. And as long as you're winning, I think that's the biggest problem with last year is like you lost some games you should have won. And all of a sudden, we're not running the ball enough. Similar thing happened, right? Like even in the 2017 season, you had some games where like I think we, it felt like it shouldn't have been this close. It felt like we should have been more dominant. And so I again, like it's always going to be about winning, but I just feel like you went out and you paid the guy, you made him the feature. But I think another factor too is last year you're trying to figure out who Jalen Hurts is, right? We saw a glimpse. We thought we knew who Jalen Hurts was. And last year was really about like, who is this guy? We have to put the ball in his hands. Let's see if he can pass. Let's see if he can, get better. We talked about the year before. We're talking about, can he throw the ball over the middle, right? What about the accuracy? And then all of a sudden, deep ball accuracy, top in the league. Like he's, they didn't run over the middle any routes because all that was in the playbook was all goes and screens, but definitely developed as a passer. And then you go into this year, like, who Jalen Hurts is. I don't think that, as much as you're trying to win games, like there's an eval going on too. And sometimes coaches and owners get caught up on that. It's like, hey, we need to eval our quarterback, and that becomes the main thing as opposed to winning. And I think this year it's just about, hey, listen, he's our guy. We've paid him, right? We paid Saquon. We paid all these guys. It's not about eval anymore. Like it's about we got to go out and win. And so I hope that as much as Jalen Hurts clearly is the center of the offense, like I think that the pressure's kind of off on putting the ball in his hands and making him win games. So I hope that, at the end of the game, when, you need to run out the clock, instead of dialing up divide concepts where he's got to throw the ball 30 yards downfield, you just go, hey, Saquon, win us the game, man. Win us the game. And I think, he rips off a couple 10-yard runs, that changes the average from 80 yards a game to 110. All of a sudden fans are happy, right? And you win the game.
Yeah, to your point, you do learn who Hurts is over the past few years. The goalpost has moved a little bit each time. There's a debate kind of brought up about Hurts. Can he do this? Can he do that? And he proves to, some extent that he can. He's definitely improved. The finer scope is what is Hurts in this offense, and I think that he's greater. Then his impact is greater than what it's been over the last few years, because at this, like I in the NFL at this stage in his career, I do believe that Kellen Moore is the best coordinator that he's had.
I completely agree with that, and I feel like we're gonna see a more well-rounded version of Jalen Hurts. He did mention that with Jason Kelce there, like a lot more is on him, picking up the blitz, making calls at the line of scrimmage, and he looks to be very willing to embrace that role. I feel like having a quarterback of his stature, a quarterback as well as at his age, wanting to have full control of the weapons at hand, it's going to be. I feel like it's not such a cause for disaster, especially with a guy as intelligent as Jalen Hurts is. But I think we're going to see a really shut up version of Jalen Hurts, where hey, like you kept me off your top 10 list. Okay, shut the hell up. You said I couldn't pass. Shut the hell up. Like it just feels like we're gonna see that. Like I'm not saying like this is gonna be MVP Hurts. I just feel like this is gonna be like the maturation version of Jalen Hurts. Like Jay-Z when he dropped Reasonable Doubt, like he was still raw, but he was damn good, right? Like but when the blueprint came out, it was like shit, like Jay's here kind of thing. I feel like that's what we're gonna see out of Jalen Hurts.
This is the blueprint season.
This is the blueprint season. Looking at standout players on this roster. So of the entire 53, what one player really stands out to you that you feel like can have a real successful campaign and that could really actually make a dent in their tenure in Philly?
You want to go first, Eric?
Are you saying outside of the 53? I'm sorry.
No,
like Okay, I thought I heard
You want
outside the
practice
53.
squad?
I was like, dang, I got to pick from the practice squad.
Greg Ward is not here no
I was
more.
about to say,
a pretty talented
I
receiver
guess.
working at Starbucks outside the facility. I think he's got a chance.
Yeah, no, I think the
Walk-ons.
water boy is going to be great. I think he's brought the most water, the best water.
I don't know if you've seen Invincible, but Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah,
The last time we got a garbage man, it worked out well. We even got a movie. Let's do it.
You got to read the knuckle. You got to read the knuckle, man.
He was the last good 83. Mark Wahlberg. I think so. Was he 83? Honestly, he might have been.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like his number is terrible. Like he got like 57 or something like that.
No, 83 actually. Somebody look up Vince Papali 83 real quick.
I can't type this morning.
Anyway, biggest impact on the team. Well, I mean,
Yes, he was 83 to confirm.
oh hell yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
no way.
There he is.
Little did we know, man.
That's Mark Wahlberg, dude.
Our fault, Jahan. It's an Eagles legendary number. That should be retired.
Oh man. Actually, you know what? Because of the story that is, there's that article
amazing.
written there.
Yeah. What a throwback. That
honestly, honestly,
Jahan
the
Dotson honors Vince Papali. It's 83.
this is officially the
favorite
worst
movie.
segment
What
of
can
the show.
Anyways, sorry, Eric. My fault.
No,
right.
I'm just saying, like, our talk about wide receivers who are 83ers is somehow the sneakiest storyline ever being pulled to the Birds.
Right.
Yeah, I would say let's just go real quick, I guess, on the offense. The person, I mean, without picking like an obvious name,
You can only pick one player, offense or defense. There's no
offense. I thought you were going to offense
player.
and defense. Crap, dude. Oh, this is even worse. Ah, man, because now I have to go between corner and what I wanted. All right, what was the question? The step up, the biggest, the most opportunity to step up. Is that
the
what you're
biggest
kind of like?
standout player you feel like will actually make a dent in Philadelphia in their tenure?
All right, Keely Ringo.
Ooh,
Yeah, because I was going to go between him and this season. Like, I think Goddard is going to have a step up season from what we've seen as well. But I would like, and I think be more valuable, because I think we all know that Goddard's a good tight end. He just has to remain healthy. But it would be more valuable to see Keely Ringo have like this breakout season, because then that means our depth is on secondary is a lot more well-rounded and a lot deeper than anybody cared to imagine. So Keely Ringo, if he can, break away with a few interceptions this year and cause a few turnovers and be a sure tackler, those are the things I'm looking for him. Then Keely Ringo is my answer.
So I was gonna go with corner 2 and say Isaiah Rodgers. I think that he can, a cornerback 2 and him making that kind of impact. Like, I just feel like he could be. I mean, he already was one of the best corners in the league before the suspension. Or not, I mean, not best, but best up and coming. And he was like well graded, all that stuff. So I was gonna say him, but since we already said corner, I think honestly the swing guy on this team is Cam Jurgens. If he can be a top 5 center in the league and lead this offensive line. You don't like, obviously you're still gonna miss Jason Kelce, but if you can progress and not miss a step with that guy, just a plug and play player, and I truly think he can be, man. There's a reason why Jason Kelce handpicked this guy to take over for him. If he can be a top 5 center in this league, which numbers are top 5, top 6, top 7, but a top center in this league. I think the sky's the limit for this offense. And I think the season in general is going to depend on the defense. But that offensive line, man, like, it's been a pillar of this team for so long. If Cam Jurgens can come in and be the guy that we think that clearly Jason Kelce knows he can be, they're just going to walk over teams. Like, if you can just run the ball with Saquon and then you still have those 3 receivers just waiting there, and like Eric said, Dallas Goedert, it's going to be really hard to stop this offense. And it's hard to win games when you can't stop an offense from putting up 30, 40 points, right? So I think it's Cam Jurgens.
Who is the backup center? Would it be Landon Dickerson going behind, like in case, like kind of like swap it over? Like, is Dickerson considered more of a guard center?
So it looks like they don't have an actual backup center on the roster.
Right.
They extended
The,
to the practice squad. Like, I think Brett Toff.
I'm blanking
Brett
on
Toff
his name,
is back, I think.
the Washington guy too, played center.
Oh, I mean, you mean the Giants guy, Nick Gates?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he played for both, actually.
I think he actually did.
Yeah. He played center and guard. So maybe.
Okay, so then at
But
least
yeah, I
there's
feel
that
like you kick. Wow, I don't know if you kick Dickerson inside. That'd be a tough one. So Cam.
I don't want to confirm this because I probably misheard, but I want to say that they were talking about that. And by they, I mean Roseman and Sirianni. Only probably just before the weekend. I think it was like on the 27th or something that they were talking about it.
I think it would work just because maybe you could throw like a Mekhi Becton to the left and throw Trevor Keegan into the right, or
that's what I was thinking too,
or Tyler Steen to the right, or whatever the case may be. Like the way Jeff Stoutland has trained these guys, like you have to be versatile if you're on this offensive line,
right?
Which is, I feel like it's a phenomenal thing because you're producing so much great talent. But the same thing with Brett Toff, like that's what they did with him this all season. Like the guy could play guard and tackle. Like I think he play center as well, if I'm not mistaken. But it's a very interesting offensive line group.
Yeah.
1,000%. Yeah, Cam Jurgens is a great answer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You stole my answer.
Actually,
really? Got both of us.
My standout player, and I feel like I've been preaching about this all off season, is gonna be Devin White. I think there's a redemption season for him. I think he's gonna be this year's version of Alshon Jeffrey. Comes in on a 1-year deal, gets an extension mid-season or towards the end of the season because how well he's balling out. He looks hungry and he's fast. Like I feel like he's one of the faster linebackers on the team. He's good at blitz. It just feels like a very, very well fitting move for the Eagles to get a linebacker of his stature. Former, I think it was like top 5 pick, if I'm not mistaken, in the draft. I think it's gonna hit. I personally think a lot of people are focused on Nakobe Dean. A lot of people are focused on Zach Bond, but I feel like Devin White's gonna really like demand attention out of Eagles fans as well as opposing teams, and I think he's gonna make his time here very well known.
Yeah.
What's a player that's not necessarily a starter, like the first team guy who you think could be a first team guy by the end of the year?
Ooh.
Like offense or defense?
That's a tough one. So I think that there's a reason why they kept Johnny Wilson. I'll say that much. And it won't necessarily be that he's racking up yards or anything like that, but I could see there being goal line packages like we talked about in like for the Chargers, right? They had Donald Parham, right, at tight end, 6'7", big guy. Didn't really make a splash until before last year, right? Like I think he even had some time on the Eagles, right, at one point.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so like I think a guy like that, you have a red zone package for. There's a reason why you keep him around, even if it's 4 touchdowns. Like I could just see there being a package where you need a touchdown. You like that matchup, whether he's lining up as like a pseudo tight end or whatever it is. I feel like he can make a splash. I was really hoping Anai Smith would be able to make some kind of impact, but it looks like it's going to be a tough road for him for year one. I still think he's going to be a guy where whether it's, as a returner or, just kind of putting him in sub packages where he can be a gadget guy. I feel like he's going to make a splash, but I feel like, again, you kept Johnny Wilson around for a reason. If he could have 4 or 5 touchdowns this season in one of those packages, that's a pretty big splash as a guy you didn't even necessarily expect to make the roster.
That's fair. I think I'm going to eat crow for this one because I just knocked him in the last segment.
I'm going to eat crow on mine
James
too.
Bradbury.
No, I'm not. I think I'm going to go with Nolan Smith, and I think it's going to be more so not because of Nolan Smith, but more so because of Josh Sweat. A lot of people, I think overlook the fact that Josh Sweat kind of tapped out at the end of last year because of everything that was going on. I feel like Nolan Smith, although he doesn't have the proper technique at this stage in his career, he does have great bursts off the line of scrimmage. And I think he can actually make some things happen to the point where Vic Fangio's like, hey, like, this guy's doing things. I'm going to keep him out there just for consistency's sake. if he's able to just add a little bit of technique to his game, I feel like Nolan Smith could be really dangerous. But it seems like he's the kind of guy like, he's a speed rusher, but he's trying to also make himself a power rusher at the same time. And it's like you can't choose, you can't have both right now. Like just choose what you're good at and just master that craft. And I feel like if he starts to realize, hey, like I'm quick off the line, I actually need a little technique with my hands, or what the case may be, he's going to be lethal enough that towards the end of the season in our playoff stretch, we're going to see Nolan Smith kind of like, be effective. I feel like he's going to be better than Derek Barnett in his career. Like, got to be better than that at least. But I just feel like he's going to make that leap if he adds certain requirements to his game, as well as if he realizes, that he's not a power rusher like a Jordan Davis or Jalen Carter. He's all speed.
I think mine, if there's one that I'm thinking that kind of could sneak into a starting role by the end of the season, I'm going to eat crow, and I'm going to say he's officially out of my doghouse. Nakobe Dean. Nakobe Dean is somebody that I rode to the ground for the beginning of the preseason and pretty much throughout preseason, because we didn't know what he was, but he always was strapped to the word potential, and sky high potential. And then you saw him play the preseason, and you're like, I see that potential. So now, if Zach Bond, I think, or if something happened with Devin White, right? Like if Devin White does get hurt, like God forbid. But if Zach Bond, is not producing at the the starting rate that he's he's starting with, I should say, not that in the effort of not being redundant. I do think that Nakobe Dean can find a way to sneak in there and kind of reclaim that position and keep that position. I kind of see Zach Bond as a linebacker that was brought in to motivate, in fact, guys like the rookies, like Nakobe Dean, even to an extent Jeremiah Trotter. So I still think that for those two, there's a position to be taken of the two between Trotter and Dean. I think Dean is closest.
Yeah, I feel like Zach Bond's a guy that you're comfortable starting, but realistically, you don't want to start, right? You want one of your young guys to kind of take up the mantle. So, again, I feel like you feel good about him now, and it sounds like all the news coming out of the camp and from Fangio as well, like they like him, but ideally you start the young guy. So you're waiting for that one of them to kind of surpass him.
1,000%.
That's fair. So our next segment, Byron Young was actually signed off of waivers. The Eagles in exchange waived Marlon Tuipulotu. Byron Young, 23 years old, was lost his starting position with the Raiders, or lost his role with the Raiders per se. I think he's a former third-round pick, 79th overall, if I'm not mistaken.
Third round of the 2023 draft from Alabama. I don't know the though.
Could be a big splash for the Eagles. I mean, development-wise, he's very athletic. I know he's very good against the run, but should we expect more out of this move, or is this one of those things where it's like he's there for depth? Don't really expect him to stand out, especially because it didn't pan out in Las Vegas.
I think it's perfect for where he's at. I mean, he's depth, so it's not necessarily that he's out of the picture, but he's obviously not going to be starting in front of a guy like Jordan Davis. So if he can fix in for Jordan Davis, if he needs a snap out and he is productive, then I can see an increased role, like maybe towards the playoffs, right? Like just to kind of, or not maybe towards the playoffs, but towards the end of the year when you're trying to get into the playoffs, because you do want to keep your team healthy, and that's when that matters. And that's what his aspirations are for this team, is to be in the playoffs, even represent the Super Bowl. So if you can get key work from depth, especially around the defensive line, where you can stack players in and out, and they're all pretty much healthy and rested up to the best that they can be, even in game. You're going to squeeze the most out of your defensive line. And we were talking about that earlier. There's no necessarily standout rusher. Well, that also works in favor of Fangio, because you don't really need a standout rusher. You need standout coverage to create a rush. So in this scenario here, is probably going to be a lot of times where you're not applying a rush. So there's a lot of chasing of quarterbacks, and you're probably going to have, you're probably going to want somebody like Byron Young to be able to fill in a role or fill in a few snaps just to, help on the chase. If in the slightest, and if not, get in there and take down a quarterback or stop the run, whatever he wants to do. I think that you're going to sit there and say, Jordan Davis is probably a run stopper. Maybe Byron Young is somebody who is actually, helping the pass rush down the middle instead.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think that you don't necessarily see Byron Young in any more than you saw Tuipulotu come in. And, there is definitely certain times of the game that, you brought him in. He's a big body. Now, it's interesting the Eagles moved from a 40 front to a 30, right? And so I wonder if they had, an issue with how Tuipulotu was able to two gap, because often, if you're head up on the center, you're asked to, to occupy both A gaps. And so maybe the movement, I know he wasn't like a great lateral mover, more of a big body. So maybe with Byron Young, they see, a little bit more lateral movement. Like Brian said, kind of like maybe a bit more athletic. Still a big body, just shy of 300 pounds. So, I think it's more about the future and like, okay, if he's going to stick to the roster, obviously stealing someone like that, you got to add him to the roster just to make sure you get him. Probably a guy that you may see on the practice squad at some point too. I'm not really sure how the Eagles see him fitting, but it feels like he's just an upgrade scheme wise over Tuipulotu. And so, they got him, but obviously, former 3rd round pick, has pedigree, Alabama. So I feel like you're gonna see him in some packages, but more about the long term and see if he sticks around. It's just an eval, and you got to add him to the roster to make sure you get him.
I think that's fair. This or that is this Eric's favorite segment of the week. Twice a week, Eric lives for these segments because this is his baby.
That's what I live for.
So we'll let you take that away, and then we'll wrap up the show with Morgan giving us his prediction, because Morgan abandons us during the week.
Yeah, sorry.
He's more of a weekend warrior for us.
Yeah, 100%.
No, I'm gonna start out on a somber note. I was at the Phillies game, Phillies Braves game, and that's not the somber note. When I was there, unfortunately, what happened, and we learned this the next morning, is the unfortunate passing of two incredible hockey minds, brothers, the Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Gaudreau, were riding their bikes. They were hit by a drunk driver. They passed away. So to that, RIP. Tell somebody that you love them today, because you never know, right? So that's my this or that this week. I don't have really anything else to add from the Eagles. I think that we've mostly covered it. Go ahead and just it sucks to hear something like that. So
rest in peace.
I don't know how to follow that. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's tough, dude. But that's my this or that this week.
No, you're good. You're good. Very good. I'll be honest. I'm naive to the situation just because I don't watch hockey, but I did see everything going on within the Eagles team and within the PSN team. Speaking about it, so definitely our condolences to that family. Yeah. So then we'll follow up that with Morgan. Your predictions of the game in Brazil. Eric and I will kind of give you guys our lowdown on Brazil, the game in Brazil on Tuesday night, which is pretty dope as well because game's on Friday. We're back live on Saturday morning to give you guys a full recap of the game. Yeah, take it away, Mark.
Yeah, man. So first, I feel like we were talking about this pre-show. I was trying to warm up to the fact that this game is in Brazil. I still think it's so dumb. You're taking away, a game from, one of, if not the most passionate fan bases in sports, one of the hardest places to play in the link. I feel like I feel like the Eagles will do well, but, that's a huge advantage, and you're taking it away from them. We talked about this too, England got the Jaguars for so many years because no one wanted to watch them at home. Now you have, and not just the Eagles, but the Packers, passionate fan base. They travel well. Send the Raiders to Brazil. Send the Falcons to Brazil. I'll never get over it. a huge misjudgment in my opinion from the league. But on that note, I was thinking about it, and I understand the Packers had a good year last year. They probably win their division. Probably won't be much of a contest. But like the hype around the Packers, and this is not even necessarily discrediting the Packers, but you look at the two rosters, man, and I think I saw a post that was comparing the two teams, and it was like, which receiving core would you take? And you're talking about A.J. Brown, Jahan Dotson, Devontae Smith, and not in that order. Devontae Smith should have been second there, and then you look at the Packers, and you got Christian Watson, sure, Romeo Doubs, sure. I think Jaden Reed.
I think Jalen Reed, right?
Jalen Reed.
Yeah, it's Jalen Reed. He helped me with my fantasy team pretty hard last year.
I knew he was gonna say that.
I knew, so I remember.
So like in their own right, pretty good little young receiving core. It's no contest. There's no contest, right? And you look at the running backs. Okay, Josh Jacobs, I like him. Good guy, sure. Carried the Raiders franchise for a couple years on his back. Or you have Saquon, generational talent. No contest. You look at offensive line, what I mean? Like, and you lose Jason Kelsey, but still, you have one of the best positional coaches in football. You have one of the greatest stories of all time in football, in my opinion, Jordan Mailata, who is apparently the second best tackle on that team, right? And it's just like, what are we talking about here, guys? What are we talking about here? Really? Like, the Eagles win this game. It's not going to be, a blowout, but like this is the Eagles game to lose. You're better than the other team. Now the question mark is the defense. We're not sure how the defense is going to perform. That is a talented offense, but like you just have to keep them under 30 points. This defense can do that. You can keep them under 30 points. That secondary is dangerous. I think that people are underrating how good the Eagles secondary is going to be. You have, you go from, and again, no, I'm not, just bringing up his name to bring up his name, but you have a huge upgrade at cornerback for the second cornerback from James Bradbury to now Isaiah Rodgers, and not necessarily, again, not discrediting James Bradbury, but we saw the season he had last year. Not hard to upgrade from how he was playing last year. Isaiah Rodgers was one of the top rated corners again before coming over to the Eagles. Took a year off, was grinding, and showed no signs of slowing down this year. You have a secondary with safeties that. You're 3-4 deep. If you factor in, Vontae Maddox into that situation too, like, what are we talking about? I feel like it's going to be, offense is going to put up at least 35. And again, I'm not discrediting the Packers defense, but I just don't know how you stop this offense. So my prediction is probably going to be like 35-21 Eagles. And I don't think it's going to be that close. I really don't. I think the Eagles just dominate. You're going to see how good this Eagles team is. And no discredit to the Packers. They win that division easy. They'll probably be 3 seed, 4 seed, maybe even 2 seed. But there's no contest, man. Eagles win this game. And maybe it's, being overconfident. But the last time me and Brian and Eric were overconfident, the Eagles, did pretty well. They went to a Super Bowl. So.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's my prediction. 35-21 Eagles.
I think, and I'm not going to give any my breakdown, but I think just to put it out there, my only concern with the Eagles offense is that they didn't play a single preseason snap.
That's fair too.
That's I feel like I fear a slow start. I don't fear a loss. I just fear a slow start. I just hope they don't look sluggish.
But you don't show off your ankles on the first date. You know what I mean? You keep your ankles hidden on the first date, and then second date's when you wow.
I'm Spanish. My ankles are always out.
Yeah, fair enough. All right,
just always wear shorts.
Brian would have played starters for every preseason game. Yeah, I'll just let that go.
Just always wear shorts. Yeah. Always show your ankles.
This is what I'm about.
Yeah, like that's a good point though.
I'm thinking about my ankles.
I'm just picturing your like a Tinder profile picture. It's just your ankles. This is what I got.
Oh, that's so stupid. Yeah. The fact that someone would swipe right on that too.
They're nice ankles, They're nice.
Yeah,
ankles.
You see those ankles, dude. Yeah. No. I will say this, Brian, though, that you bringing up the Eagles, not playing really a down with their starting offense. is I would take like the sloppy football that both teams are probably going to play in week one, just whether it's knocking out the rust, whether it's their first reps they're actually getting. I'll take the Eagles over the Packers still because I believe in the raw talent. And unfortunately, there's nothing to sit here and say like the Packers don't have film on this Eagles raw talent that being sky high, and they don't have film on the offense and they're running underneath Kellen Moore.
Fair. I didn't think about that at
So
all.
you know what I mean? Like, so they can sit there and say, "Oh, last year what did they do?" All right, look at last year all you want. Like it's not this year. Even Hurts was like 95% of this is new, right? So you can throw out, you maybe I don't know. I guess maybe by that quote, maybe keep 5% of what you see on film from last year if you're an opposing defense.
Mm-hmm.
So that's nothing. So yeah, they don't know what to expect, and maybe that's part of the plan. I would like to maybe get something in motion in that third game and maybe see a drive, maybe see a series or something. But since that wasn't the case, yeah, it's a surprise. It's a surprise to everybody, and I think that works in Philadelphia's favor, at least offensively. Defensively, too, though, it's like I have all the faith in the defense. I have more faith in the defense than I did at the beginning of preseason, which is exactly the aim.
Yeah, I mean Jalen Hurts too. Like he was lights out all training camp, right? And so you throw him in. I think you give him some game reps if he wasn't like that. He threw one total interception all of training camp. Like that's unheard of.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with me, Brian. I don't even want to even hear that because I had everything to do with everybody's boy ESP sitting there and going, "What is he gonna do it?" Stop with it. Who cares? It's training camp. If he's gonna do it, let him do it all day in training camp.
Well, that's the thing. Like in training camp, right? You're experimenting, you're learning stuff, you're trying new things. Like that's where you're retooling it, right? Like, and so to only throw one still, like incredible.
I think it just shows how much because you're right. Like in training camp, you should be darting it everywhere just to experiment, right? But like it also shows how can I say this the right way? How serious Jalen Hurts really is this year. Like it shows like, hey, this is my offense, and I'm going to show you motherfuckers like this is my offense. Like he's such a perfectionist in what he wants to do. Like that it annoys a lot of us, right? The whole standard talk, like we haven't met the standard. Okay, what's the standard? It's like going to shop, right? We're like, hey, like you haven't seen these beans. Okay, where are the beans?
Have you seen the sales? What's the sale?
What's the sale? But I mean, like he's such a perfectionist. The guy, he works his tail off to make sure that every degree of this offense is in his mind. I forgot what movie was it? Was it a movie or a show?
Inception.
Where like he's like able to see everything right before it happens. He said 8 Mile.
I just like how we both said two wildly different movies at the same time. He goes Inception, I go The Green Mile. Like,
that's one of my favorite things to do when someone's like, "Oh, what's that movie?" and they start explaining the plot, and I'll just be like, "Inception," and they'll be like, "No, like there's a line in it." Like, yeah, Inception, bro. Like everyone's seen Inception, man.
Have you not seen the movie you're talking about? It's totally Inception.
It's a father-son
or Shutter Island
story, but yeah, it's Inception.
I feel like he's just trying to map things down in his head where it's like, he's expecting every single worst possible scenario to the best possible scenario of how everything's structured with the game planning of the plays. It felt like a very serious season from him. I'm all here for it. Like I mentioned, we'll give you guys our full breakdown Tuesday. Shout out to Morg for joining us today. I'm assuming he'll be around next Saturday, possibly.
We got a game, so unfortunately, probably
we're playing, side chick to his games on Saturday.
Now he's got games to win. You got to coach. You got to go win.
Actually, I mean the game's at 1. I might be able to sneak it in.
All right, we'll see. Maybe Morg graces us with his presence.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, until next week. Any last thoughts before we sign off?
Thank you for giving Jalen Hurts a real offense so you can read defenses.
Yes, and thank you for giving us a defense to help Jalen Hurts on the offense.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of in the same way with the coordinator.
I just can't.
I didn't think I'd be saying that about Fangio. By the way, had this been like 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just looking forward to watching the Eagles boot fuck the entire league. That's what I'm looking forward to. It's gonna happen.
All
Well,
right,
football's back, boys. So we'll see you guys next week.
Go Birds.
Yeah, go Birds.
Flip